Welcome back to the Celtic Exchange Weekly. This is Tino. This week I'm joined by a full house of Mif, Paddy and James as we once again cover all things Celtic. Mif, International Week. I know you love it. What are you saying as we near the end of this latest international break?
Hello Tino, hello Paddy, hello James, hello listeners. Yes, I do love it, but less so when we get pumped 3-0. It was a bit of a tough watch. It looked like Stevie Boy hadn't watched the second half of the game in Greece on Thursday night. We seemed really ill prepared for the threat that Greece carried and subsequently lost some goals, predominantly down our left hand side where Robertson was outnumbered. So disappointing. I think we're carrying a bit of dead weight that should have been. Clark has to be more ruthless in making changes to the starting lineup for me, and very disappointing that we go to the bother of winning away in Greece and then throw it away at Hampden. So yeah, I think probably Stevie Clark's time's coming up, but he's done a fantastic job and he's got us back to qualifying for major tournaments. But I think the kind of style at times combined with how we've performed at those tournaments suggests to me maybe it's time for a change.
Well, as you always say, James, the guy that got you there isn't necessarily a guy that will get you there, being the next level. But we'll see. We'll cover a wee bit of the international stuff just shortly. Tony Ralston, the sole representative from Celtic and that Scotland camp, and just a woeful performance.
He seems to have gone for quite a severely partied middle shed as well.
It's out there.
It's the GT3.
Kind of Josh William type.
Yes, it's decent. But
we'll get that type of William.
We'll get to that. James, as I say, I'll read out some of the international headlines just shortly. Did you keep an eye on any of the Celtic boys, or is the full focus now on Saturday's game with Hearts?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, good to have a full room. Been a while.
Indeed. Full house.
Good to see you. I think last time we were all here, we were top of the league before Rangers won that 16-pointer. So we're back now. So it's good. No, I keep an eye on it. Delighted for Ida, obviously. And it was Ralston's got a thankless task. He plays extremely well in the midweek, gets the plaudits, does nothing wrong on the Sunday, and he's a whipping boy. You know, it's just, I don't know why he bothers, but there's so much needs changed at Scotland for me. It's just dour. That's the word for it. Very, very dour. And there's talent in the team, which is a real waste. You've got to harness that talent, you know. Not Scott McTominay though.
But you've got guys like Lennon Miller, young talent, exciting talent. Let's just not play him. I thought, whether this is popular or not, Lewis Ferguson was a bit harsh to get dropped. He's a better player than Kenny McLean for me. We're not going to dwell on too much of the Scotland stuff. But
that's not harsh.
Well,
it's 33.
A frustrating. Dour is a word. It's a very Scottish word, but it very much sums up
everything about it. By the way, even the broadcasting for BBC Scotland, the whole thing was a mess. And the one person going after Tony Ralston is Stephen Naismith. I mean, what he's got in for him, I don't know, but
a clue.
We were talking about it. Imagine Stephen Naismith trying to rile you up for an important game. That would,
do you know,
I'd quit football.
Horrible.
I would quit football. It's a very big game tonight, and if we all try, we could maybe get the win, but we might not.
It's funny. I've no great issue with Stephen Naismith.
He's got plenty issues with you.
Him and Lyndon Dykes, is that the best we can come up with? Lyndon Dykes standing, by the way, the whole time with his crutches. Give the guy a chair. But the whole thing, it just wasn't great. You know, the BBC have just taken over the international stuff, and between the on-the-field stuff and that off-the-field, not a good night. Quick question for you. You'll have seen some calls online, I'm sure, in the last 48 hours or so. Let's just scrap international football. It's awful. Let's just scrap it. That's ridiculous. I mean, you kind of need it, don't you?
Let's hear him out. I'll be too harsh.
I think maybe take the serious competition away from it again. I don't like, you look at the international breaks that we had for friendlies, and it was a good time to kind of give players a run out, 45 minutes with an international team to see how they were going to fare for international tournaments. They play so much now. That's the big issue for me. Get rid of the Nations League. Just have it, their qualifiers, and then have it that they're playing international friendlies every so often.
I actually think the Nations League brings a bit more to it, because otherwise it's friendlies against Gibraltar and all that stuff. Anyway, we're not going to solve that one, but for some folk it's all about Celtic, and as I say, we return to action against Hearts at the weekend. Paddy, you've been doing some international of your own. You've been out in NYC. How was your visit to the guys at the Manhattan CSC?
I'm in this studio and I'm still sweating every last ounce of the whiskey and the Guinness out at the moment. They've got the lights on up full, the night tea. Absolutely brilliant trip. Just another big shout out to the Manhattan CSC. They looked after me and the family well when we were over. They've looked after Mif with a nice wee t-shirt here, and they've given us a lovely wee scarf for the studio as well.
Brilliant.
So we'll get that in there as well. But a big thank you to Stevie Wright. just really, really interesting story. We done a CSE story with Stevie on Tuesday. That's due to get released soon. Well worth a listen, especially around the Fenian Boys chat, because I think that they can sometimes maybe take a little bit of flack for having a name such as that, but some really cool, interesting stuff from them in terms of where that formed from, how it came about in Manhattan all those years ago, and just some interesting facts about their favourite games, their favourite moments as a supporters club. And then just really, really good day, albeit the result wasn't the greatest against Rangers, but a really good day in Jack Dempsey's that day as well. The place was rocking, 2 levels open, and just everyone was in about it from 7:30 onwards. A shout out to Stevie Murphy that listens to the show, came up and wished us well for everything that we do as well, so a big thank you to him as well, and a few others that had mentioned that had listened to it as well. A big thanks for coming up and say hello. We love that. It shows that we're doing something right, that they can still actually come up and talk to us after some of the stuff that we spout on this. A really good trip all round to you. Good to hear, and I'm looking forward to seeing the episode with Stevie, so you and I will work together to put that out probably next week, and we can hear what Stevie and the guys have got to say. But sounds like a good one out there, and one to tune into. In terms of the CSE Stories series, which I sometimes stumble across, that continues on Wednesday of this week. I spoke to the guys from Pittsburgh just on Sunday there, and that episode about on Wednesday, that's with Sean and the guys there. We'll then have that episode between Paddy and Stevie from Manhattan at some point, probably into next week, and we're also recording at the weekend with the LACSC, so busy times. If you're part of a Celtic supporters club, whether you're in the States or not, and want to cover your story on the show, then just get in touch, Tino at thecelticexchange.com. I'll give you some international headlines, Mif, in no particular order, but some of the boys, as we know, were on their travels. Tony Ralston we've covered, played the full 90 in Scotland's woeful loss to Greece last night. Kieran Tierney came on in the second half. He's found himself a bit in the periphery, hasn't he? Just kind of comes and goes there. Adam Ida, as you mentioned, scored a late winner. James's Ireland beat Bulgaria 2-1. Alistair Johnson's Canada beat CCV's USA 2-1 in a CONCACAF Nations League playoff to finish in third place. Reo and Hatate and Daiz Maeda have both been with Japan, but none of them played, but they did become the first side to qualify for that 2026 World Cup in the USA, Canada and Mexico. Kasper Schmeichel, he's caught some headlines. He saved a Cristiano Ronaldo penalty after just 5 minutes, but Denmark eventually lost 5-2 to Portugal, and Schmeichel's picked up some sort of shoulder injury. Kind of mixed reports, but the suggestions are it's been x-rayed and he's going to be okay, so we'll see how that looks come the weekend. Elsewhere, Yang came off the bench for South Korea and a one-each draw with Oman, and in terms of a couple of loanies, Louis Palma scored for Honduras as they beat Bahrain 5-2.
And cut inside his man, hit it.
Gustav Lagerbielke, he's been away with Sweden, but again, an unused sub against Luxembourg. James, anything of note jumping out at you there?
Obviously, Schmeichel's something, we don't want any danger there, but at the same time, I have to see Sinisalo at some point. I'd heard actually that it was one of those play on offside numbers.
It was.
Was it? So the ball should have been dead anyway, so hopefully that type of thing adds some evidence to cutting that nonsense out, because the thing that commentators always say, and experienced football people say, is someone's going to get injured, and there he is injured. So hopefully it's nothing too serious, but at the same time, I'm okay with getting Sinisalo a couple of games under his belt. Now Hearts would obviously be a bit of a baptism of fire, but it's a Parkhead, so it could be the time.
Yeah.
Give him a few weeks and then see how he's doing, and let Schmeichel come back. Schmeichel's no spring chicken these days, so it might be a wee bit longer to recover.
Paddy, any standouts, any news from that international break that's jumping out at you?
Interesting video between Carter Vickers and Johnston.
Wee Barney.
Wee Barney at the end. Well, not between the two of them. Carter Vickers is going for someone in the Canada team, and you just see Johnston coming in all smiles and laughing away and just calming him down, and the big man does, and he sees it's his wee pal.
I wish the two of them showed a wee bit more enthusiasm.
I start boxing
last week to get in about it.
With CCV try to annex parts of Canada and stuff like
Aye.
Not ideal.
We had,
that's his own show, that.
Easy, big man. Yeah.
We had put out for some listeners' questions. We'll get to a couple of them just shortly. But Stevie Keenan, good friend in general, good friend of the show, he says in his usual upbeat style, who's the worst out of Adamida and Yang? Where do you go with that? I replied to say, listen, both those guys are international footballers. He says, so is Grant Hanley. And to be fair, he had me there.
He stumped you.
I didn't have much reply.
Evening, Stevie.
Mif, anything for you, anything that stands out with the Scotland stuff?
Yang coming off the bench. I've focused all my positive attention on Yang. In the absence of Jamesy, it's all my love's gone to Yang.
Is Yang now your guy?
Youngster's paradise. Yep.
I'm playing that for a holiday or something.
I'm playing that on repeat.
Yeah. So that's about it. So the general hope, of course, is that all players come back fit and available, and Schmeichel's the doubt, and hopefully that's not a biggie, and we'll need to see what happens with the rest. But I think most of us are looking forward to a return to Celtic and an end, at least for now. When's the next break, Paddy? You're usually good for these things.
International breaks.
That's
us
after the season.
That's us, aye. So it'll be the summer.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and
it's
friendlies as well.
Aye.
Don't need to worry for now.
Time to bear a new manager in, that's what you're saying.
Okay.
For who?
Scotland.
Oh, Scotland.
Scotland. Okay.
We're in enough territory there, lads.
Say
We're in
again.
enough territory
Say
there.
again.
So a couple of listeners' questions. We'll start with one from Colin Rogers on Twitter. Colin's a good friend of the show. He says, our over-reliance on Callum McGregor has hurt us this season, and we've seen that again with his absence in the recent loss to Rangers. Without a natural replacement in the squad, does recruiting a defensive midfielder now become a priority? Paddy, we went with Arne Engels in the 6. I thought he was more than capable. He didn't have a great game on the day, and there could be a number of reasons for that. But it maybe seems that he is best in the 8, the more advanced position in the midfield. Do you think we've got a natural successor? And how much do we miss Callum McGregor when he's not there?
Ultimately, you think about when Callum McGregor kind of started to make it into the Celtic team, and he was playing that little bit higher up, and the labour of his fruits there was the fruits of his labour. I'll get there. The fruits of his labour was there to be seen. And what
he's been on it for 2 weeks.
Aye, give me a chance. Aye. But he was an absolute joy to watch in the first spell under Rodgers and what he brought to the table. And I think he kicked on and he got stronger. But we eventually just started to see him coming back into that more defensive mid position when Bruni was starting to kind of slow up a bit. Arne Engels is nowhere near that point yet, and I think we should be playing him more advanced at this point. He's got the legs on it to do the box-to-box stuff. I listened to the weekly podcast on the flight home because it was still too raw and I was still probably too pissed to listen to it.
No good movies?
Listen, this helped me through. This helped me through the 6.5 hour flight. I listened to the bit you're talking about. He should have wiped out... He should have took a player out on the counter attack for
possibly Dessers. Diamondi.
I think he's been clever enough not to. I think that if he does, he gets the booking straight away. And I know that the bar was set high for McLean in terms of what it took to get a booking in that game.
For Rangers.
For Rangers, absolutely. But I actually thought he was clever in that. It was too early in the game. I do think there's an intelligent player there. I don't think it was his best game. I really don't. I think what we've seen on that game on the Sunday was, for me, a lack of understanding between Carter Vickers, Johnston and Arne Engels, and it cost us big time.
I done a couple of episodes recently with Greg Robertson. Regular listeners will know now, Greg's a guy with 18 years in the Celtic Academy in terms of his experience. He's got a UEFA Pro licence, he's got a Masters in Sports Performance. He knows the game, and he spoke about triangles all over the park that weren't working for Celtic. He talks about the Carter Vickers, Austin Trusty and Callum McGregor triangle. That didn't exist for that game, so therefore you've got the CCV, Navrocki and Engels triangle that have never worked together, and various other triangles throughout the game. And I just think that, to Colin's point here, such is the reliance, James, on Callum McGregor, that I think we should be using other games to experiment. We use Callum McGregor when we're running 4-0 v running them outsides. Surely that's the point to say, right, drop Arne in there, because you never know when we might need him, or drop Paulo Bernardo, or maybe Luke McCowan at a stretch. And to just throw him into a game of such magnitude in that position, it seemed like a step too far, James.
I think it's a wee bit horses for courses as well. I think Bernardo fits that role better than Engels. My main thing about Engels was, if you bring him into the 6, you lose what he delivers as an 8. So that was my main argument. But I think he showed in that Sunday that it's maybe not his position at all. There's so much responsibility and weight, and he's maybe just felt too young for that. That was the biggest disappointment for me, was that he didn't take that responsibility and deliver. But it was probably his worst game in a Celtic jersey for me.
The thing is, he played that position quite a lot for Augsburg last season, but it's part of a 2. It's part of a 2.
Well,
and
Robbo mentioned that. That's maybe when the Celtic should have gone.
That's where I think it's been too much for him. I think it is. There we go.
So one of the big suggestions is that the shape didn't lean towards Engels having a good game. It wasn't set up for him because Rangers were going with this high press, whether it was, let me get my players right, Czerny and Dessers pushing very high up on Carter Vickers and Navrocki, and then Raskin and Diomandi pushing up on Engels and another. And Robbo is a big fan of Greg Taylor, as you are, Mif, and he's not saying
he did say the Masters, He
knows his stuff. But he was basically talking about Greg Taylor's ability to invert. He knows it very well. And the reason you don't invert your full-back just for a laugh, right? The reason you bring your left back in or your right back in is to give you an extra body at the base of your midfield. So it gives Arnie Engels someone to work alongside him, but also to free up Arnie Engels. We didn't do that. We didn't do it with Schlupp. So Engels found himself constantly getting the ball and somebody right on his toes. Now that's up to Engels, yes, at times to be better on the ball. But I would debate the system wasn't fully in his favour. I think
our managers definitely get a lot to think about after the game. 100%. There's definitely areas that were weak. Now, we look at obviously some of the players that we were missing. Absolutely, Nawrocki not kicked the ball all season. Actually thought he'd done very well when he came in.
Just played safe, but
played safe because that's all he knows in that system at the moment.
He's been told to play safe.
He's also been frozen out completely when you think about it.
I don't blame him for it, but it was what cost us.
Oh, I wouldn't necessarily say
everything goes right when he's not an outlet to left.
I don't think that's what's causing us though. I think what's causing us is the missing Callum McGregor, and I think it is that system of bringing us out from the back. They were right in on top of us at all points, and I think that we were very uncomfortable in trying to play out a right-hand side. Everything was trying to come through the right, and when you've got Carter Vickers and Alistair Johnson that just didn't want to be there and didn't want to trust Arnie Engels for being that outlet, you've still got Nicholas Kuhn hanging on the halfway line the full game as well. He was non-existent.
Yeah, he wasn't sure.
That first half is very difficult. I would disagree with you on Nawrocki, my friend.
Yeah, and
it's a nice exchange.
We don't want to dwell too much on the Rangers stuff. We've covered it, and then someone, as I say, we've done an
I'm
additional.
sitting here absolutely chomping at that.
You'll be allowed in one moment, but we've done an additional episode, as I say, a tactical breakdown with Robbo. He's got all the data, all the Y-Scout info and stuff like that. So we've covered that in detail. So we don't want to fall back into that in this episode. But yeah, in terms of Callum McGregor, Rangers game or otherwise, Mif, we do need to look at what the future holds without him, or at least with less of him.
Yes, he has played in underperforming Celtic teams as well, though most notably at Ibrox turn of the year. So he doesn't immediately solve all of those ills. I think we just lost our bottle a bit playing through the midfield for 20-25 minutes of the game. All the issues of the first half were broadly solved in the second half because we played through Rangers far more.
Yeah.
So if you're using that to judge Engels' game, it wasn't all bad. He probably underperformed across the 90 minutes compared to the standard we've been used to seeing from him. But there were flashes of play in that second half that were exceptional. It's because of the defeat. All that matters in those games is winning, as we've already went on about. It's because we get beat, we don't really look at that. But Celtic were excellent in the second half. They really were. They were brilliant, and they were tearing through Rangers at points. I saw the stat about how long the game was in play, and what Rangers did really well was just kill the game at points when the momentum was they'd really killed Celtic's momentum by getting down injured, and McLean let them away with it, but again,
or aided them.
But well, aye,
you might look at
it. So
the paranoid exchange.
There's
it's 48 minutes.
There's mitigating reasons for all those things, but ultimately it's the end result's all that matters, and that's what makes you go back and look in hindsight and say, so many performances were below par, but it's actually what happens next is the most important thing. I don't necessarily see it overall as a bad thing, because anything that makes us question the strength of the squad and look to go and kick on and improve in areas where we need to improve, if it shines a light on that, then great, because that's the way we need to be looking at this. You need to take the emotion out of it, especially a week or so after the game, and say, right, well, what could actually be the positive that you take out of this? The positive is that, okay, our squad maybe isn't as strong as we thought. If Greg Taylor is going to leave for nothing, we're going to need to invest heavily in support for Tierney, because we know Tierney's body might not last a season. All these things are now cropping up that they're conundrums, but we need answers to them. And I agree with James in the point about Sinisola with Schmeichel being injured away, and Jay put him in. Yeah, that's why we signed him. We signed him as the succession plan. Let's see what he's got.
Yeah, and I think painful as the defeat was to Rangers, you're absolutely right. It's at this point now, a week and a bit down the track, it's less about what happened and how you respond to that and how you move forward as a club. And Colin's asking the question about Callum McGregor and that succession plan, and is that a priority? And we'll get a definitive answer from you lads shortly on that. But there's also a job to be done at left back, whatever the support to KT looks like. Is it Schlupp? Is it Matthew Anderson, who's out in Austria? Is it someone else altogether? Are we going to get that striker that Brendan Rodgers said in January he wanted, and so on and so forth? Just in terms of
the lad been put up for transfer. Plays in the French league. Japanese striker.
The Kyogo conundrum continues. I don't know.
Bring him home.
Absolutely not.
Bring him home.
Absolutely
It's such
not.
a strange situation.
Bring Ange up the road, I know.
Co-managers.
We'll maybe catch those two questions at another time or never. Paddy, just in terms of Colin's word, and specifically though, without a natural replacement in the squad, that's what he says. Do you agree with that? Is Arne Engels not, at least at this point, not a replacement? Is Bernardo not a replacement? Is Luke McCowan going to struggle to do that job? Do we have a guy right now within our ranks that can play that number 6 like Callum McGregor?
No.
As a captain?
Well, either or. I mean, you could make KT the captain and have number 6.
No, but what I mean is you lose more than Callum McGregor's abilities. You lose his captaincy, his leadership as well.
I would agree on that. I think as a player, no, I don't think anyone is there. I still see Bernardo is better further forward. I really do, and I think that we will hopefully get a run out of Bernardo for the remainder of the season.
He's due back about now, isn't he?
Yeah.
And James Forrest.
Engels, as I say, it's just he's too young to bring into that position. Now, if you're looking at it in games where we're under the cosh a little bit more, especially in Europe, or even against Rangers, go to the 2. Yeah. Go to the 2 and just carry that threat from them. That's all they've got is to press us. Shore it up a little bit and then play out from the back. We're too good, we're too quick if we've got the right players in the right positions.
Yeah. See, when you just look at it from a squad depth point of view as well, though, and emotion always comes into it when you play Rangers, but no Forrest, no Bernardo, no Kyogo, and no Taylor, as in Taylor actively playing when he's such a major functioning part of the team.
No Trusty.
No Trusty as well. That's fairly significant. Now, I know Bernardo's had an in and out sort of season comparative to the impact he had last season, but I really like him.
It's the strength off the bench as well.
And Forrest's reliability coming off the bench as well that we've not had to call upon for weeks. I'm not just referring to the Rangers.
So 2 each bringing Jamesy Forrest on.
That's what I mean. So.
Well, some folk are trying to say Barry Ferguson outgunned, out-tacticked Brendan Rodgers by making the changes that we didn't. It's like, what did they want Brendan Rodgers to do? Is Johnny Kenny the answer?
I thought Ferguson got the team right. No, I do.
Yeah,
I think
who could Rodgers have brought off?
I thought
absolutely.
I thought Young was very impactful.
Young was good. Did we only use 2 subs? Is that right?
Yeah.
Aye.
So I'm sure he'd have loved to have a Bernardo or a James Forrest or a whoever.
That's kind of my point. Is that we probably take for granted, when you go to a home game at 60 minutes, the numbers come up and on come McCowan and Bernardo and off goes Hattati and Engels or whatever combination of those, and you just go, all right, here we go, and Bernardo looked good today, or McCowan looked good when he come on. If you've not got that to call upon, then it massively affects 100%. The planning for the manager. And again, there's a school of thought just that the board effectively ended the season in January when they went, there you go, that's your squad. And it's little wonder that further down the track, when you are so far in front, you maybe get the types of performances that we've been getting.
We'd certainly have had a better chance if we had a decent striker on the bench. Who knows how it might have played out, but it'd have been nice if the manager had that striker that he was looking for. I don't want to get sucked into the Rangers stuff again. As I say, we've covered it in a lot of detail, but just to round up on Colin's question, is that defensive midfielder, that sitting midfielder, the priority for summer? And if not, what is?
It's one off, but it's probably the most important. Well, I think the centre half positions need an awful lot of work.
Left and right?
Left and right and reserve. So there's a lot of bodies required in there. That's probably the 3 positions left, right, centre half and number 6.
So that triangle that we speak of.
Yeah.
Would you replace Carter Vickers?
I think he's going to make that decision for us. I think he's just waning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, as a big fan of Carter Vickers,
I remember some of our big games under Ange when we lost Carter Vickers and Starfelt, and just watching Joe Hart and Stephen Welsh and can't remember who'd come in. And if you don't have that familiarity, it is so evident. And I just think there was
especially pace.
I think there was a bit of that in that game. I still think Carter Vickers is here. I do. I still think
he becomes a reserve.
I still think there's another big season with that back line.
It's easy as well, just because it's so fresh in memory about how bad he was last week. Him and Alistair Johnson were so bad, but I still think he's got something to offer. But maybe he needs genuine competition as well.
I would agree on that.
He knows if he's fit, whether it's Europe or Rangers or any sort of notable game he plays, and that's not good for any pro. Paddy, so James agrees defensive midfielder is certainly one of the priorities. Where do you stand?
Yeah, I think it is a priority. And
number one priority?
Yeah, I would say so. I think for me, no one in that midfield at the moment comes in to do the same job as Callum McGregor. But the difficulty that Brendan Rodgers has is that how do you get a player on board to come in and play that position whilst Callum McGregor's still there?
It's not easy. And I don't know if the sell is to a young up and coming midfielder to say come and learn off Callum McGregor for a season or two and then become Callum McGregor, but it's not easy to sell that.
We've been linked today with I can't remember his name, so forgive me on that one, but the
great insight,
excellent. Plays with Augsburg as a centre mid.
An old friend of Arnie's.
Get the old boys.
Okay, get the gang back together. Mif, last call on this question. So do you think that's the priority position, or
excuse me, one off? I would agree with James on that. I don't think McGregor's going anywhere anytime soon.
32 in summer, I think.
You still have time, but we've seen through. I mean, Ange did try to solve that. I think Ange wanted McGregor further up the pitch. He tried to sign
Abelgarden,
all those guys. Awata came and kind of flattered to deceive him.
Adeguchi. So there's been various guys.
There's been attempts to do it. If rumours are to be believed, I think Lennon Miller looks like he is a target.
Is he a sitting midfielder, or is he more box to box?
I think he's box to box.
I think he's box to box, but again, it depends what Rodgers sees in him and thinks that he can work with.
So he's not the fastest, and maybe that leans to, as he matures and takes on more experience, he becomes a really solid six.
I think it just, for me, the defeat to Rangers has shone a light on all those issues around. Let's see, like McGregor, the replacement of McGregor, absolutely. But I would also lean towards. I was kind of hinting at that when I gave my initial response, is that it was one game of which Engels wasn't terrible for the entire game. He underperformed for a part of the game, probably too large a part of the game, to be honest with you, than all of us were comfortable with. But there were also signs of excellent play in there. As the game gets stretched, notably, when it's probably easier for him to drop in and take the ball because Rangers aren't pressing as high up the pitch. But my retort to that would be, we knew it was coming. We should have been prepared to deal with that, and we weren't. So there's loads of different things that swirl around that. As a club, we just need to prepare for life without Callum McGregor, because he's been such a huge part of what we've done over the past 5 years. How you do that is a very, very difficult thing. It's not like there's just a ready-made replacement sitting out there waiting to come in who'll be such a good influence in the dressing room, who'll be such a good captain, who will be able to back the managers that come in so well. We're so lucky to have that combination that we have in him. So
what did he mark recently? Was it 400 appearances? I can't remember. It get presented 500.
Yeah.
It's incredible stuff, and you cannot replace somebody like that overnight or easily. It's a real tough job, but that's the job of the manager, these recruitment guys, and everyone in the back room to find that solution. Did you have a final point on it, James?
No, it was just on Engels. You're saying he'd good phases and bad phases, but see, when the ball's only in play for 48 minutes, it stands out.
I completely agree. My point is, it's just that, how do you get more of the good stuff? You know, is that what Rodgers will concentrate on and try and work with him, or ultimately do we all see him as with himself further forward? I was enjoying watching him playing a bit further forward because he was getting loads of shots and goal, and he was really trying to make a difference. Dare I say, don't shoot me here, much like Turnbull used to do, where kind of getting those a midfielder getting those shots away from the edge of the box. Settled in there, James.
I like Turnbull. Just didn't work.
Just on that stat, for anyone who's not picked up, so in the episode that we done with Greg Robertson, Greg, as I say, has got all the data, the Y-Scout data and various things, and the stat that came out was of the 95-96 minutes in the game against Rangers, the ball was out of play for 48 of those. So that includes, as soon as it goes out, you start the watch, and when Tavernier takes 35 seconds to take a throw in and Butland takes all that time, that all combines for 48 minutes of football that's not getting played. It's incredible. And anything that UEFA or FIFA, whoever's in charge of these things, can do to get the ball more in play must be a good thing. But that's, again, another question for another day. Thanks to Colin for his question just regarding Callum McGregor. Next question is from Chris Higgins. Chris is part of the WhatsApp group that we have. There's a link to that in the show notes if anyone wants to join and get involved. And Chris says, given the significant work that will be required in the squad once again in the summer in terms of players in, players out, is it a concern that the CEO will be required once again to conduct negotiations on several fronts at that time? Chris then says, number one, what can the club do to assist them and to make this process better? And number two, do we need to hire someone specifically in a specialised role to deal solely with transfers? James, this is something that you're quite strong on, so what's your take on that?
I'll do it.
You'll do it, right? Okay. That's there you go, Chris.
I'd really enjoy that. No, I think...
What about the doctor?
Chris is...
Dr. Tisdale.
See, if you're looking at his track record, though, see in terms of high-level negotiations for multi-million-pound deals, I don't think he's got a CV for that. For a lot of other stuff, but I don't think for that.
But hold on a minute then, just to get clear, is that Paul Tisdale's role, or is his role to identify the players and then pass it on to somebody else and say, now you negotiate up? You want a centre midfielder that does this, this and this, and he's that age and he's that profile and he's got international caps or whatever. I'll find you the guy. Then it's over to Michael Nicholson or this specialised position to then do that. I don't think it's Paul Tisdale's job to negotiate.
No, but it should be part of the mix. And totally correct. You then hand over to an experienced negotiator. We don't have an experienced, successful negotiator in the building. Michael Nicholson, you can't knock what he's doing in terms of balance sheet performance, all that stuff. That is a successful CEO, in black and white terms. So leave him alone for that. But he's also got to admit that this isn't his forte, and that forte isn't in the building. We need to hire that as soon as possible. I like Ida. I love Engels. We were mugged on both those deals because of poor negotiating, and that goes back as far as you want of Celtic in the way we negotiate terms.
See if you could hire a specialist negotiator for, let's call it 100 grand a year, right? Surely that pays back for itself and then some if you get Adam Ida for 7, right? There's 2 million saved and so on and so forth. And I know I'm really simplifying it there, but a good negotiator would pay for themselves. And if that's all they have to do, it's like a sales type role. It's like, this is your target to get these players at the optimal value and identify, where the loopholes are in contracts and different things. And surely somebody of that nature, to take that weight off Michael Nicholson, I agree with James. I think Michael Nicholson, as a CEO of the club in terms of where Celtic are commercially and everything else around it, they're in a pretty solid place. But I think it's fair to say that transfer windows have become a bit of a bun fight and a bit of a riot and all that kind of thing. Why would Michael Nicholson not say, well, I'll tell you what, let's use the budget, let's get this guy in for, say, 100 grand, and that would take a lot of weight and do it more effectively?
I think generally we have been a pro Mick Nick podcast. I think we see his merits. No, we're getting back to you. We're getting back to you. But at the same time, I expect that he should be making structural changes to help him do his job more effectively. Yeah. It's not a criticism necessarily of him. It's that
keep it off his desk.
It seems to be things that shouldn't be his job are his job, and that's just accepted wisdom at Celtic for so many years.
Because Bob Kelly did it that way. Do you know what I mean?
And
still done like that.
It's a case of we need to modernise the club to future-proof ourselves so that when changes happen in different areas, we still have the structure there where we can continue on. I agree with Tino, having somebody specialist will actually save you money, because what happened last summer where we had our trousers pulled down a bit on 2 deals.
They'll also point to Bernardo and say, well,
what do you mean?
Saved about 3
how much they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be good and bad stories in there, and at various points over the years, the club can say, well, that went really well, that didn't go so well, but we got 25 for Matt O'Reilly and we didn't get it for,
I think it's the fans having confidence moving forward that the structure is in place. Well, I suppose it just depends on what you actually care about. Some people don't care about these things. They just see whatever the team is on the park and go, brilliant. They don't really care how they get there. Scoss is brilliant. Celtic win, got up the road happy.
But see, the Celtic's recruitment model has become the most important thing to the bottom line in recent years. You can sell all the shirts you want and you can sell out your season books and you can do all these good things.
Yep.
It's the guys that you buy and sell. It's getting Matt O'Reilly for 1.5 and selling him for 25, for example. And I think if Celtic can absolutely nail that, Chris is symptomatic of a lot of fans, probably all 4 of us included, that just don't have the confidence that Celtic are doing it right. We're kind of stumbling into transfer windows.
Because as much as obviously you're talking about Michael Nicholson doing a steady job, and I wouldn't disagree with that at all, it's all very safe. It's all very safe stuff.
That is Celtic, isn't it?
Exactly. There's no risk taking. And in terms of those players that we scout, we spend small amounts of money on, and we go and make X amount on them, we make large profit sums. Absolutely, they're still teetering along the area of getting into that point where they're spending every season 8, 9, 10 million pounds on players, knowing if you can progress them, you're going to get 20, 30, maybe even eventually start moving up to the 40 million bracket. But it's all very safe because the balance sheet looks good. The players are coming in and out at the right ratio. But what we still don't have, and what we're about to see coming the end of this season, is that we're coming to the end of another squad, probably.
Yeah, kind of natural life cycle.
So what's ready to come in? And this is where we fell down the last time when Ange came in. So it's all right being safe in between that. You're getting profit for good players. You're making some good signings, i.e. Jota and KT. I'm not taking away from that at all. Players But in terms of scouting, in terms of spending more money on players that we don't know, but actually can take us to another level, we're still not there yet.
Somebody said in jest, we've got Jota back, KT's coming back, Chris Ayer has been rumoured. It's like, what?
Nah, I wouldn't take Ayer.
I'm just saying it's just.
I know.
Absolutely not.
But what is the scouting team doing if it's like look at all these guys?
See, Awata and Kyogo coming back as well. It's. I mean, I think we're always a few players short.
Yeah.
When we exit these windows where you go, there is undoubtedly good stuff happens, and it's it's pleasing the fans seeing Jota back and KT back. It's amazing, absolutely brilliant. But where's our striker? We've lost Kyogo. We need a striker. We know Taylor's leaving. We need a left back solution, and Schlupp's come in, done okay. But for me, there's just always these questions. And will as a football fan, will you ever be happy with your club's business?
Is that just football?
I know, that's what I mean.
You can stuff the squad as the other side of it,
It's just the position Celtic are in.
But it feels to me,
it
feels to me we never just go, right, there's the strength in the summer for the season. Probably the last time we did that was, Ben. But we don't talk about that.
Good old Dom.
We don't talk about that.
What did you mean before the...
Poor Dom.
I was talking about
Get Dom on the show.
No, for the
When's that
year before
NDA?
Remember? We,
the 2021 season. We thought we nailed it. But when did you genuinely come out of summer or January window? And I know fans will always clamour for more, and managers will always say, I got 3 players, I wanted 4, whatever. But it's hard to remember a time, January or summer windows, where you've come out at thinking, we've absolutely nailed that. We've always left a gap. In January there, Kyogo was the gap. We never replaced it. You can look back into the summer in a variety of positions. You're probably a winger light in different things. We never seem to get it. So I'll come to a second, Paddy. Chris's point is just that out with his questionnaire, he says he feels that something needs to change as this is becoming an issue every single window, and I feel it is.
I would agree. I think, but again, I go back to that element of, yes, all right, we'll go and sign X, Y and Z, but we need to get rid of someone. They're not sitting on the fact that we've got X amount of money in the bank account. They're saying if we're bringing someone in, someone has to go. The wage sheet has to balance out.
Well, imagine
it's too safe.
You'd kept it early. Just say spent the money and kept it early. Fantastic. But I know it's not going to happen. But at what point
and still sign McCowan and Engels?
Well,
and Bernardo?
Say Engels and Bernardo.
No McCowan.
Not McCowan.
But then you've got Wata.
No, still sell Wata. I'm just saying, imagine you kept it early, but not sign McCowan.
Paddy,
my point being that how strong that looks.
Yeah, but as Paddy says, and I think we've all pointed out here, Celtic just won't do that.
No,
we're so safe,
that.
and I see just one window. Just take the risk.
Do you know what I think Angie's first two, when there was just chaos in the building?
But it was fun in games because every other day you were signing a new player, and it was Juranovic and it was Jotas and Giacomakis and Cardickers.
And look at the size of the wage bill from that summer before Ange joined. It went way down. Yeah. We got rid of so many big players that summer. Even the loan wages that we're paying for the likes of Laxalt, Duffy, you name it. All of that was gone, so it was free rein. It was John Joe Kenny. Still never forget that pass back that went for a corner.
And then they scored for it.
They scored for it, of course they did. I just think that's where we just have to realise we're at as Celtic fans. Now, how do we push for change on that? I don't know. Do we give up the season tickets? Like, we're still winning trophies.
If you are going up your season ticket, if you just let me know.
You're back on the waiting list. It's been a great year.
I've made my point.
If you don't like my morals, I've got others.
She was forever.
Just to finish on Chris's question, I think we've kind of roundly agreed that someone specialist to do that role would be a benefit to everybody. Mostly Michael Nicholson, right? To allow someone else to carry out that job, and that is their sole focus. People would debate about Michael Nicholson, the job he's doing. Generally speaking, I think he's doing a good job, but being the CEO of Celtic must be mental as a job. See, in terms of your to-do list every single day, let alone summers and Januaries. So why not just say, well, I can take a really big job off my hands, a really important job off my hands, and give that to a specialist. But just to finish on this question, that aside, is there anything else that would help the club be more effective in that world? Whether it's a resource or a different way of thinking, anything that pops out?
No, I mean, I know they've got all the right tech and they know what they should be going in at. For players, they've done their research. It's just at the pinch point when they haven't necessarily structured their deal right, and that can all be resolved by a specialist coming in. It's such a cheap appointment. I'm going to pay you $100,000. Guy will probably work 4 months of the year. 4 months of the year, and I want you to go and save me millions. You know, it's such an inexpensive,
It's a cost-effective move.
Cost-effective appointment. I'm amazed it's not a big thing in football or sports in general.
Yeah, so it generally falls back to the director of football. It's mental to think that back in the day, the manager was the guy spending millions. A guy who spends his life on a football field and working with tactics board is also the guy making multi-million pound signings. Whether it's Alex Ferguson or otherwise, Barry Fry and all these characters, giving people control over millions who are football guys but not money guys is crazy. And I think in this modern world, Celtic need to appoint a guy who, yes, knows football and has a vested interest in football in general, but is more a numbers guy and a negotiator and who can do a really effective job there. But we'll see. I think it's another. You've been crying out for structural change. That's your kind of buzzwords. And I think it would really help Celtic if that was an appointment they made. But we'll see if that's something that happens. Before we kick on, you might be wondering if anyone's watching just now, there's a book on the desk called The Celtic Jersey. It's a book by Paul John Dykes, who most folk will know from Axum. Paul John took 7 years to complete this book. You would call it the Sistine Chapel of books, James. This one here is a book that James here got me for my Christmas back in 2023.
Aye, that's right.
Thank you very much. Now, we're not giving away this copy, but we're giving away a copy. I'll never give this away, bro. But we're giving away...
I'll take it off if you do.
We're giving away a copy to...
Signed by Danny McGregor.
Signed by Danny McGregor. To one lucky Celtic Exchange Plus member in our March draw. The Celtic Exchange Plus is our membership platform which allows listeners to enjoy every episode we do completely ad-free, and also provides members with early access to this Celtic Exchange Weekly show every Monday night. The Celtic Exchange Plus Mif starts at just $150 a month. $150 a month. And all members are automatically entered into the prize draw, where we give away Celtic prizes each and every month. And as I say, this month it's the Celtic Jersey by Paul John Dykes. Check it all out at the celticexchange.supercast.com. There is a link in the show notes to do so. Before we close out this week's show, Celtic now face a run of 3 league games on the bounce. We've got Hearts at home on Saturday coming, that's 29th of March. Then we're away to St Johnstone. We've packed out the stadium, by the way. We've got all 3 stands for a run-of-the-mill league game against St Johnstone, which might have been a title party.
Still a fun day.
That's on Sunday.
Still a chance as well.
Is there?
Aye. 2 chances. They could drop points.
Based on what
both
Rangers
times.
do. Sunday, 6th of April, and then Kilmarnock at home on Saturday, the 12th of April. Paddy, we're currently 13 points clear of one of the best sides in world football, which is a hell of an achievement by us. But what are you expecting from Celtic on the return to league action?
You know, I always hate getting into those games against them and then it goes into an international break. Win or lose, by the way. I'd rather keep the momentum going, if easy for me to say. I think they'll just be itching to get back to it. And I, like James says, there might be some changes in terms of Schmeichel not making it back. I would be interested to see Sinisalo come in and get an opportunity, a bit of a run. But I think that they'll just be itching to get it right again. They'll be itching to get back to it and just finish the season off. They've played some brilliant football this year, as we've spoke about week in, week out. And I think it might have been yourself, Mif, probably October, November, after the Dortmund game. You mentioned that it's very difficult to go through a season without having little blips here or there. We just know that they're going to happen. It's just really difficult to see it happen against them and twice in a row. So I think they'll be getting themselves ready for when that game at Ibrox comes up as well.
Mif, you made the point. Is a good game to come back to, isn't it? You can come back to a kind of run-of-the-mill fixture, but actually coming up against a Hearts side who have found decent form and who don't have any great love for Celtic, it's quite a good fixture to bounce back on.
Always good to beat the Jambos, and there's always a decent atmosphere at Celtic Park because there's no love lost between the 2 sets of fans as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's good just to get back to business, and I think that the players will be very keen to do so as well. We have also noted, whilst it doesn't happen very often, the bounce back record of this squad is pretty good, even going back to bounce back ability, even back when Ange was manager as well. So listen, it's in the players' hands to come out and rectify what was a subpar performance against Rangers. It's not like them to do that, but I think there was loads of mitigating circumstances on the day as well. It's just now down to them to get back to business. Yeah, is that. James, we'll be doing a full preview of the Hearts game that will come out on Friday of this week, but just briefly, do you expect to see many changes? Paddy's spoken about the goalie situation and we'll see what happens there. You've got an Adam Ida who will be boosted by scoring a late winner for his country, and I've not seen them yet, but apparently he spoke very well of the manager and the work he's doing. Can you see words? Should I hear them? Have I got that all wrong? You can see them if they're written down. Have you lost it? I've not seen or heard those words yet. Right. But apparently there's words somewhere down the rounds where he's spoken well of the manager. I have seen them written down.
Okay, but he will be boosted, James. He'll be confident, given that he scored that late winner. Does he potentially come in? Maeda and Hatate will come back from, again, thousands of miles worth of travel, etc., etc. And then you've got the midfield situation. Does Calmac come back in? Is he fit? Is James Forrest back? Is Paulo Bernardo back? What do you think?
On the striker one, first of all, I mean, I think we saw from the Rangers game that Dyson can do most things you ask him to. He'll just do it. He's just a fantastic player. And
can we play him in the six?
Engine? Maybe, probably.
Could be brilliant there, by the way.
But so for the weekend, I think you want to have your main winger on the wing, and that's Dyson. So keep him out there, bring Ida in. I've got a question for Celtic fans and Ida fans in general. So I think his biggest problem at the moment is not talent. I think he's got talent in spades. I think it's confidence, which goal last night will really boost that. While we're speaking about consultants, is there space for John Hartson to come in, spend a bit of time with Adam Ida?
It's a funny one. I don't know. I know John Hartson from the time we done some stuff in this very studio, and he was a striker coach at Livy for a while. He was doing that there. I don't know. I don't know if it's quite as simplistic as that. There's let me think. There's 3 or 4 coaches that work alongside Brendan Rodgers. Don't be fooled into thinking John Kennedy is the defensive coach. That is a myth. He's an all-round talented football coach. You've got Gavin Strachan, you've got Adam Sadler up there, and no end of support guys there. I don't know. It's an interesting question.
Doesn't he be forever?
I just pull him aside after training, get a bag of balls, and start hitting some. I don't know.
Or a bag of cans.
I'm not sure if it's the modern way or not. What do you think, Paddy?
I think it comes from your manager. That I know what you're talking about with Hartson in terms of what he kind of
specifically in this situation. Don't do that. Do this. Here's how I did it.
What do you think's missing from Adam Ida's game that John Hartson might add?
That's true.
Brendan's ego.
No, but I think he knows when to say, right, there's something specific, something specialist. Why not?
Yeah. I was just asking what aspect of Adam Ida's game. So he's got the talent. I think the work rate's there. Body language can be lacking in confidence at times. I don't think he's a lazy player. But what elements do you think that a Hartson could help him? Maybe position, places to be?
I think it's both positionally, where he needs to be, when to move, when not to move, how to use his size. He's got huge size. But also when you're not getting games, because Hartson was rotated with Sutton, so it wasn't like he was going to start games every time he was on, he was off. How to keep your head in the game when you're not in the game. I think Hartson's a perfect fit for that, I really do.
Maybe.
Fair point. No, I think I don't see why not. I was looking at the comments from Ida after last night's game.
Did you see them or hear them?
They came to you in a vision.
I sounded them out. He signalled be quiet with his finger, basically to the fans more so those that have been giving him pelters online.
But see when you're not firing.
I know.
But
we're in a big messy Celtic WhatsApp group, as everyone is. But we're in one, James. There's a million bodies in there. A lot of the guys are from Ireland, and he was getting called out just before he scored the winner. He does lazy, he does do nothing. Oh, great stuff. There's Ida scored the winner. I suppose it's the world, isn't it? But he does get a lot of flack, whether it's from his national team supporters and Celtic supporters haven't held back on him. So it's sometimes warranted, sometimes not. But the only way to respond to it is to score goals.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. And it's all good doing that. It's all good coming out and explaining why you've done it. The only reason people are criticising you is because you're not putting the ball in the back of the net. So start doing it.
Yeah. So it was good to see him get that goal last night. Mif, I forgot the question, but what you saying? You've not said much.
You saying it? No. I feel a bit like now.
You up to the night?
The reaction to the game in general has just been huge.
Yeah,
and
over the top, huge.
Wakes us up a bit.
I wouldn't necessarily say over the top. It's justified at any time.
It's always the way.
Rangers beat Celtic, there should be an inquest from Celtic as to why that's happened, because we don't like it and we don't want it to happen again. Exactly. So I don't want to bring on the inquests. But we also need to remember that we're supporters and we need to support the players, and more so than ever now the players can see what the supporters really think of them, because everybody will check their socials to see what's been said. And the problem with that is a lot of people that will be on the socials with opinions will be absolute yahoos that have never been to the game, so you need to be wary of that elitist. Sometimes going out there and speaking, I tend to be a bit like that, James. Going out there and seeking that sort of opinion isn't always necessarily reflective of what the true supporters and fan base actually think of you and your performances or your ability. So I just think that's the world that we live in. You know, players are always looking to answer their critics because they're never short of critics these days. All it takes is one bad result and you will be able to see a whole load of vitriol online about you, your performance, probably your friends, your family, your dog, anything. It's just the way of the modern world. So I would just like this to be the moment that the team and the squad just do what they have to do until the end of the season. There is a double sitting there, absolutely there for the taking, which will lead to a treble. So it's up to us, or it's up to the squad and the players just to kind of focus on that. I get the hurt reaction to getting beat off Rangers, especially at home, especially when we'd spent the 2 weeks prior just making out how much a clown Ferguson and his new management team were, and they have actually subsequently shown that. It's just that they rocked up and beat us at Celtic Park. It's just, for me, we have given that whole circus the oxygen that we really, really could have stamped out, and that's the most annoying thing for me. However, it's there, it's done, it's all about how we react, and it only ever is.
And on that, this is a perfect time to just reset and regroup. There's a running now, was it 7 league games left, I think, and potentially, hopefully, 2 Scottish Cup games. So you're on the home straight. There's 9 games to go. It's a good time just to put it to bed, and the only way to put it to bed is winning games of football and scoring goals, and hopefully that'll start against Hearts at the weekend. James, I'll come to you for your final comment. Sorry, one last bit of news. Neil Lennon, former Celtic manager, player, treble winner.
Is that breaking news?
Not really. Broke the other day. He's now the Dunfermline manager, and I believe he's up against Bruni's Air United, either in his first, but certainly one of his first games. Your quick thoughts on that appointment?
Always happy to see Lenny back in management. I will miss him from punditry. I think he's an excellent pundit, very intelligent, reads the game really well. I'd like to see him go and really perform and do something with a team, and Dunfermline might be the right fit for that. Great character. All Celtic fans love him, so wish him all the best.
Yeah, so his first job or his key job is to get them away from that relegation zone. I think they're 2 points behind. They're in second bottom in the kind of playoff zone. They're 2 points behind the next team, Airdrie rock bottom. So work to be done, and who knows if he manages
to do that.
Yeah, like what?
Airdrie rock bottom.
Yeah, I'm not sad about that. That aside, Lenny aside, James, your final comments for the week?
Yeah, just happy to get back to it. You know, obviously it is the time, as we're heading towards the end of the season, that the good football doctor should be sharpening his scalpel and getting to work. So I hope that's all happening in the back.
His hat.
I hope that's all happening in the background. And then we just go on and deliver another treble, because there's nothing that shuts up a load of noise than saying get 3 trophies.
There's a lot of folk in our comments just now, and I'm just inviting them all to the treble party, because if we do manage to do the treble, and of course it remains enough, that would be 5 trophies out of 6 since Brendan Rodgers' return, and none of the rest of the stuff matters if you're winning trophies.
9th treble.
9th treble in Celtic's history, absolutely. Paddy, on that, your final comments for the week?
I'm all in for that, and I think that's what a manager will get the players ready for as well. As I say, they will be hurting. I've seen a few comments about we need somebody to kind of take the game with the balls in the Celtic side, but those characters are in that changing room. It's a stark reminder for them that, you know, they didn't get it in their own way at their own stadium, and I think that these are the moments that you have to kind of learn that it's not always going to go your way, it's how you react after it. So a lot to play for this season.
Yeah, absolutely. My final word goes to you.
Yeah, really looking forward to the game at the weekend. Really looking forward to seeing how the players react, what sort of tempo we play at. You know, it's just interesting. You wouldn't have foreseen us approaching April, and after the start to the season that Nicholson had, you're sitting here wondering, but will he play at the weekend because of Ida's goal and Maeda's form and Jota's form and things like that as well, and Yang's form. You know, will Nawrocki keep his place? Will Schmeichel be available? Will the Schleppster maintain his place? All those different things, but it's intriguing.
Yeah,
so it's got to be really, really good to see what the team is in the first instance, but also just how the players react and what the sort of response is by the players on the pitch. But seeing as it's against the Jambos, let's make it a win at all costs, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So big one to look forward to. Let's see how it all goes on Saturday. But that wraps things up on this latest episode of the Celtic Exchange Weekly. Thanks to James, Paddy and Mif, and thanks to you for listening. We'll be back with several shows this week, including our recording with the Pittsburgh CSC and our match preview ahead of that Celtic Hearts game at the weekend. And don't forget to check out the Celtic Exchange Plus for ad-free listening, early access to the Celtic Exchange Weekly, and a chance to win a copy of the incredible Celtic jersey book.
Go on, 150 is looking like good value.
150 is excellent value. Well done, Mif. Just visit the CelticExchange.supercast.com, or there is a link in the show notes. But until next time, the countdown is on till the return of Celtic. Have a great week. We'll see you all again really soon.